Quaker women have a voice. They have a history, they have a voice, they have the support of all of Quaker tradition in promoting the equality of women and promoting the ministry of women.
I'm sending out a signal, hoping that you heard.
If we look at Jesus's message, like he spoke to women, he had women speaking on his behalf, like that is a very ancient Christian tradition. And I think Quakerism has shown that God is calling women to ministry and vocal ministry and public ministry in ways that are spirit-filled, and this has been happening for centuries.
In my life, when I began to have really powerful spiritual experiences, I wanted to understand them better, and so I looked in the Bible and I looked in history books to find out about other people who had had similar experiences. And most of the accounts that I found were of men.
I think that the Quaker message, particularly to the wider church, and if you think of like the whole Catholic Church, I mean, they still don't ordain women. So I think Quakers do have a larger role to play if they want to kind of be a movement within the broader Christian movement.
The Quaker testimony on equality began in worship. And it began with the experience that women were called by the Spirit of God to speak in the ministry.
In the middle of the 17th century, 1650s, there was a whole community of people who understood that women were the spiritual equals of men, and they could equally be empowered by the Spirit to give a prophetic message and to be ministers as men were.
It was a lay movement. It was a movement where both men and women, young and old, rich and poor, all, if they were led by the Spirit, filled with the Spirit, they could be preachers.
It was not just a singular woman here, and it wasn't just a woman who was sent into a convent. It was a whole community of women living in the world who were understood to be empowered by God with a message.
They love to quote that verse in Acts that says that that both your men and your women shall prophesy. Everyone will prophesy with the Spirit, and they love to quote that. They were bringing in this new movement, this kingdom of God that was going to change things, and women were a part of it.
Some people feel that this was perhaps the most threatening of early Quaker ideas to their contemporaries, and the one that got Quakers most in trouble, because once you open the door to women's equality before the Spirit of God in worship, it opens other doors to women's equality and other dimensions of life.
The early Quaker women had their own kind of business meetings, separate meetings. It sounds kind of sexist, but actually it was really good for women because they could kind of do their own thing, and they could learn how to be leaders and how to organize and how to run committees and how to run meetings. And so by the 19th century, when there actually was a women's movement of political change, Quakers didn't change the political structure, but when there actually was this movement towards reform and women's suffrage, Quakers were the backbone of that movement because they knew how to organize and lead and get things done. So Quakerism opened a huge door for women. And we can be really thankful that the male Quakers actually defended women's doing of this. They actually defended them publicly in their speaking and in their writings.
I'm a stranger here, I'm only passing through, but
I feel like part of my ministry has been embodied as a young woman, and I give messages about that sometimes, about how difficult it has been for me to see my body as a whole, because in our culture women's bodies are dissected and you only see little bits of it, and so to see my body and spirit as one piece is a big deal for me, and I think for a lot of women. women are equal in ministry and friends, but are not given a similar voice in our culture at large, and hear messages from the day that they're born that they should be quiet, shouldn't speak. And I feel like Friends need to do more to encourage women to find their voices, find their authentic voices, and share their ministry, even if it looks different from what we've seen as traditional ministry.